So after our time on June 24th, our last Sunday before July Sabbath, that afternoon I got on an airplane and went to Birmingham, Alabama. It was to participate in a meeting about the way that Western Christianity, especially the missionary efforts, contributed to slavery and our legacy of slavery in this country. It was a disturbing and profound experience for me. In the first day of our time together, the group of about 35 people, the first day of the experience, we got on a bus and we went from Birmingham to Montgomery, where we visited the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Equal Justice Initiative Center, and the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, otherwise known as the Lynching Memorial. I encourage everyone to visit these places, and you will be shocked and moved to silence and moved to tears, and that is the appropriate response. At the Lynching Memorial, you enter into the place and there's a lot of security there. They have to have security. You have to, it's like going through the airport. There are scanners. You have to empty everything out of your pockets, and you go through a metal detector, and then you pick up your items on the other side. And then you walk down the path, and the first thing that greets you are the sculptures of human beings in chains. In chains, not just around their own ankles, necks, and wrists, but chained to each other. And looks of terror and pain on their faces. You walk a little bit further and you turn a corner and then walk up a hill, and there you enter into the main body of the memorial. And they are described as columns. That doesn't quite describe it, but they are these steel poles with these rectangular steel boxes. And there are over 4,000 of them, placed in different ways and at different elevations until finally you see them. You see them in one area where they are suspended from the ceiling. A reminder of human beings being the, as Billie Holiday said in one song, strange fruit hanging from the trees. And each one of these steel rectangular boxes is the name of a county in the United States. And with the name of each county of the United States is a list of the people that were lynched, or killed, or drowned, or beaten to death. There's one there in the county I grew up with, in Indiana, in Posey County. There are names. I don't know if I ever walked by any of those trees, but I know I stood on the courthouse lawn in Posey County, Mount Vernon, Indiana, where we had Easter egg hunt every year. The very place that a lynching happened. On the walls are all kinds of different sayings that remind us what's going on, and what's going on inside of us individually, and what's going on inside of us collectively as a nation, what's going on inside of us as a species. And so some of the following words are, for the hanged and the beaten, for the shot, drowned, and burned, for the tortured, tormented, and terrorized, for those abandoned by the rule of law, we will remember. With hope, because hopelessness is the enemy of justice. With courage, because peace requires bravery. With persistence, because justice is a constant struggle. With faith, because we shall overcome. My introduction to the legacy of slavery helped frame our discussions for the rest of the week that I was in Birmingham. And my role was to be a listener and a note taker so as to contribute to the crafting of a final report and recommendations for missionary societies and church denominations. In my listening, I kept hearing the indictment on the church, that the church was complicit in the creation and perpetuation of slavery. I also heard that the church was complicit in the extension of slavery violence and oppression through Jim Crow. I also heard that the church continues to be complicit in violence, oppression, discrimination through our institutions, and most blatantly through our support of for-profit prisons, mass incarceration, and idolization of capitalism. White supremacy, my friends, is still alive and well. This weekend marks the 1-year anniversary of a Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. The rally was called by various white nationalists, neo-Confederate, and actual Nazi groups to protest the removal of a statue of Robert E. Lee from a Charlottesville park. And one of the things I learned at my time in Birmingham in that conference is that yes, faith leaders came together to give a counter message to say this is not who we are as a nation. But when you look close at the pictures, most of the faith leaders are women and people of color, because white male pastors, one after another, refused to get involved. The majority of clergy and denominational leaders are white men, and they were painfully unrepresented in the struggle. Again, I heard and felt the indictment of complicity. At one round table like this, I observed a discussion where a white man, after coming from the legacy, the lynching memorial, after coming from that place, in sadness and acknowledgement and pain, one white man says at the table, lynching is a part of my history. But a black woman who sat across the table said, I have a teenage son, and I worry every time he goes out at night. That's not part of my history, it's part of my reality. And she was right. That's an example of privilege. The ugliness can be part of my history, but there are people in our society, it is part of their reality. I thought about this a lot, and I felt the sting of it. And as I thought about it, I explored the reasons in my own internal world. And I decided that while complicity is indeed happening, it's not the starting point. And so today's word about life is brought to you by the letter C. C stands for clueless. I have a lot of that in my life. I'm clueless about a lot of things. And clueless means no knowledge, awareness, understanding, or ability. And we want to claim innocence because of our ignorance of other people's experience. And this is why white people get so defensive when we're called on our unintentional racist BS. We participate in racism because we are racist products of a racist culture, and we do not even know it. We are clueless, but we are still responsible. And so as a child, I would run around trying to find all the Easter eggs I could on the courthouse lawn in Mount Vernon, Indiana, with hundreds of other white children. Clueless as to why there were never any black children that participated in the Easter egg hunt on the court lawn where their relatives were lynched. I was clueless. So that's the starting point. And you see, being clueless then allows me to go to the place of complicity. That is, complicity is going along. We passively participate even though we know it's wrong. We may not tell the racist joke, but we laugh at the racist joke. And we are passively supportive of the wrongdoing. And then the next C stands for collusion. And collusion is a word that we often hear nowadays on the news. Collusion is actively and perhaps secretively participating in wrongdoing, knowing it is wrong, but we do so because there's an advantage for us at the expense and disadvantage of another. That's collusion. And so these three C's, I became aware at this talk in Birmingham that I participate, and that the way that it happened for me is that first I was clueless, then I was complicit, and then I have actually colluded. But there are other C's working in my life, thank God. There are the C's of our faith, the C's of our tradition, of our wisdom. These other three great C's that can help us resist the slippery slope of cluelessness and complicity and collusion. These other great C's come directly out of the wisdom of our faith. And the first is the great commandment: to love God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength, and your neighbor as yourself. That when you are able to love in such a singular way, you're able to overcome your fear that might in fact allow you to live in cluelessness and complicity and collusion. And the second is the Great Commission. Now, we balk at this a little bit. The Great Commission is to go out into the world and to make disciples. And we balk at that, especially as a progressive congregation, because we think what that means is we go knock on people's doors and ask them if they believe in Jesus. And the subtext of that is, if you don't believe the way I believe, if you don't think the way I think, if you don't believe the right thing at the right time in the right way, then you're going to hell. And that's not what the Great Commission is. What the Great Commission is an invitation into a full and abundant life, a life of love, a life dedicated to peace and to justice. It is a life to believe and to have faith as Jesus had faith. It's not faith in Jesus, it's the faith of Jesus. To build a world that is right and good for all people. That's the invitation. That's the commission. And the final C is the great commitment. That is, are we committed? Are we committed to finding what it is that each person has as a unique manifestation of the spirit of life and love that is in us? Do you have a part of God, a piece of God in you? Absolutely you do. Do you know what it is, and do you know how to use it to make the world a better place and to make your life an abundant life? And when you do, you will find your greatest joy. Now that's a lifelong commitment, though, not a one-time thing. And you see, when we live in such a way that we live out this commandment and this commission and this commitment, we cannot fall victim to or participate in the slippery slope that diminishes every human being and adds to the oppression of other people. We cannot fall into cluelessness. We cannot fall into complicity. We cannot fall then into collusion, because we are too busy loving. We are too busy inviting and too busy going deeper and higher to discover our gifts and live out our calling. And then I guess there is one more C, and that is community. I can't do it by myself, and neither can you. As Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, one of the founders, one of the founding theologians of Shadow Rock, as Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, the word of Christ in you is stronger than the word of Christ in me, and that's why I need you, and that is what community is. Let's put it another way. The word of love in you is greater than the word of love in me, and that's why I need you. The word of hope in you is greater than the word of hope in me, and that's why I need you. The word of peace in you is greater than the word of peace in myself. Sometimes I'm barely hanging on by a thread. That's why I need you. The word of justice is so narrow. I want to narrow it down to a sense of fairness, about fairness for me, instead of fairness for all. But the word of fairness and justice in you is greater than the word is in me. That's why I need you. And that's why we need community. We live with this sense of obligation and hope for each other and with each other. And in this world, we need it. There is a one-year anniversary rally in Washington, D.C. Unite the Right. Let them meet once a year, 400 people. They are nothing. We meet weekly. We proclaim this word, and our word will shout theirs down until there is no more word from them. Because we're community. We're family. So I thank you. Let me know how your week goes as you think about these things. And next week, Karen is giving a word about life. about spiritual discernment, because we have a lot to discern in our lives. And the Spirit is alive and well working. But do we see it? Can we see it? We'll be blessed by it.